Hello, and thank you all for joining us. My name's Jan, and I'm part of the team at Pride Cymru. Everyone I know in the LGBT community has a very different story about how they came out to parents and families, and everyone's experience is different. Some have good experiences, some the complete opposite. Personally, I know how difficult it was for me to have that conversation with my parents. They had me quite late in life and were of a completely different generation to me and parents of my friends. And added into that, being Italian, they had a very different perspective to what being gay meant. It took years to get the courage to tell my dad in particular, and I've seen him struggle with adapting to that since. I think I know personally when I came out, I was so wrapped up in my own fears and concerns about their reaction that I didn't give much thought to how they would deal with the news. And it's only since we've been talking more that they've said how difficult they found it. So I'm really pleased to be joined today by some incredible parents who have had those conversations with their children. And I'm really grateful that you're all here today to talk to me about your experiences and hopefully give a bit of advice to help parents and friends accept and support their LGBT children. So I'm going to stop talking for 2 minutes and ask everyone here to introduce themselves. And if I go around the group as you are on my page, so if I start with Hilary, do you want to tell us who you are and give us a bit of background about yourself? Hilary?
All right, I'm not sure where I was on your screen. Hi, I'm Hilary. I live in Abergavenny in South Wales. I'm a parent of 2 gay children. I say children, they're now 42 and 38. I've been involved with FLAG since they both came out in 2004. I'm a trustee of FLAG national, and I'm trying to get a group together, trying hard to keep a group going in Cardiff for the South Wales area.
And we'll come on to talk a bit more about FLAG and what FLAG does a bit later on. Bruce, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Bruce and I'm married to Janet, and we have 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls. One of the boys is gay, and that was really what brought me into FLAG, and I'll tell you more about that later.
Jane?
Hi, my name's Jane. I live in Barry in South Wales. I have 2 sons, one of which is gay. He didn't come out until he was sort of early 20s, but that's it really. I don't know what else to say.
And Jules?
I am the mother of 4 children, and my youngest daughter is a lesbian and came out about 14 years ago. She's 35 now.
Okay, so I think really, I think it's interesting from my end to find out more about your experiences as parents and how it was for you when your child or children came up to you and what you went through. So if I go around again and if you just tell us a bit about your own personal experience. So Hilary, if I start with you again, please.
All right, well, on my 54th birthday, that's giving my age away, I know, in 2004, basically, we realised, but we found out that both our children were gay. My son, we'd always kind of both known, but not talked about it. Our daughter was a complete surprise. And I always use the word bewildered because I was bewildered. I'd never had any problems with the idea of them being gay, but I hadn't expected this. I didn't know what to do, didn't know who to talk to. My husband and I didn't really talk to each other about it, and I really needed someone to talk to. And FLAG really came up for me there. I think we had the internet in those days, but I remember Googling help for parents, and the first one that came up with FLAG. And from that day, it started quite a long journey, not of acceptance, again, of them being gay, but of how to deal with this, what was just a new future. I'd never imagined that my future wouldn't be like my mother's, sort of with a couple of grandchildren coming around for Sunday lunch, And all of a sudden, I had this terrible fear that they would be so lonely in old age. I think that was the one thing I was worried for them, that they wouldn't have a happy life. How could they if they're gay? They're not going to get married, they're not going to have partners. So that was the help I needed at the time and how I felt.
Because that's something my dad said as well. He wasn't, he worried more about my happiness and what would happen to me in the future rather than anything else. Bruce, what about you?
Right. Well, back at the time when my son came out as gay, I was a pastor of a small Assemblies of God church, which is a Pentecostal denomination. And we really were not accepting of LGBT people. We thought we didn't know anyone. They probably steered clear of us most of the time, but we were a very happy family. We thought things like this would never come near us. We were good Christians, so on. So initially, we had no idea that as our middle son was beginning, in his teens, beginning to realize he was gay, was going through an incredible time of depression. He suffered actually from chronic depression, prayed that it would be taken away from him and nothing happened, and spent hours in his bedroom, which we thought was normal because the others did as well, and had no idea about it. But then when I became aware that he was gay and it was revealed to me, I went through an incredibly horrible time. So this is, for me, this was and my wife Janet, it's a roller coaster, because we really were homophobic because of our beliefs, our religious beliefs. We weren't horrible people, but we just were not accepting, and anything came on the television, we just that's all that stuff. That happens in Bangkok. It doesn't happen in Bristol. So it meant, unfortunately, I wish I could say I was very concerned for all the heartache that he'd been through. And most of my concern was, what do I really believe about this? Surely my son can't be. We used to believe it was a demonic influence. So it's such a long way from reality. And so I thought about, well, what about my ministry? What will the church think? How will I handle it and everything? So I made a real mess of it, and it took me 6 months to actually work through it all, study it, find out the internet. Like with Hillary, for me, it was a wonderful resource. And I began to slowly realize that all I'd been teaching, had been taught, was absolutely wrong. And that's devastating. It ended up me resigning from the ministry and ultimately leaving that denomination, which in many ways was the worst trauma we went through, and also the best thing we ever did. So it was, whoa, up and down. And so then as time went on, I mean, that was traumatic at the beginning and it was very difficult. But finally, after that 6 months, he came out to me himself. And I was able then to talk to my wife about it, and it was a real breakthrough. But then we went through this time of sort of quiet. The pain he felt and the pain I'd been going through, we were kind of traumatized, and we wanted to kind of leave it and not discuss it.
Yeah.
And so we went into this dead period when nothing really happened at all. It took me a while to realize that wasn't good. And we have slowly, over a long time, begun to talk and so on. And then there are so many things as a parent that you go through that your youngster doesn't realize. For example, first he went to then university. He's a doctor now, studied medicine at Manchester. And then he asked us to meet his first boyfriend. And it was like, what? Oh, what do we do? What do we do? We met him in a cafe and had a most wonderful time. So it was a wonderful breakthrough, but we were so stressed beforehand. And then quite a while later, they came to stay with us, and he phoned me up and said, "Dad, what's the bedroom arrangement?" And, at that time, I was much more released. I said, "You're grown up now, son, well, you tell me." He said, "We'll have the double bed." I said, "Good on you then." Okay. But, that all these things you have to go through. But while we were going through that, his siblings, particularly the older two, were really uptight about it and had thought that I totally lost the plot and carried on with the beliefs they had. And that took years for complete reconciliation. Not that they all now believe as we do, but we are accepting that others are different and there's real harmony without necessarily all believing that it's the best thing. And we've learned that the approach to take in that is not to try and change people, but just love them and trust for the best in them. I'll leave it there.
The religious aspect is an interesting one. I might come back to that a bit later on. Jane, what about you? What's your personal experience?
As I said, I have two sons and one of them is gay, but I think I always knew, even when he was little, because he always used to err to the side of, I don't like softer toys, how can I put it? He used to play, do you remember My Little Ponies?
Yeah.
He used to play with those. Not that it bothered me, it never ever did. And it was just things, it's just how he was, and it's just how accepting we were of him, because that's who he was. At the end of the day, all I want is for my sons to be happy in whatever it is that they do. And it hurts me to think that he didn't come out till he was early 20s, he's now 38. And it's the turmoil that he faced at that time. But we were in the position where we knew he was what he was. We accept him for what he is, and didn't think that we really needed any help in accepting it, because we just did. So as far as sort of having to find people to talk to, it didn't really matter, because he was our son and that's who he is. So it was never, ever an issue. And because of this, I've been actually able to speak to him about it, something we never really did discuss, and asked him why he never ever spoke to us about it. And his answer was, well, because I was at home, I was who I was, and it wasn't an issue. So why discuss it, which would make it an issue? Because he said you were so accepting of me as I was, or as I am, so there was no need to discuss it, which sort of makes me feel good, I suppose, but it's still, I think, quite sad, because I think of the turmoil that he might have been going through at the time, because everybody knows what it's like to grow up and all the issues that you face, not necessarily just this, but just stupid things about confidence and that. And he's now a confident, successful person, and that's all I could ask for.
It's interesting. I think I said at the top, everyone's got different experiences, and I know quite a few people within the community whose experiences with their parents is completely different to mine or from each other's, and it's just about that level of acceptance. I think it's a big kind of fear personally I had. I don't know, what about you, Jules? What's your experience?
All right, well, it was strange, really. We were, as a family, I'd always tried to bring up my children in such a way that they would embrace diversity and gender equality, really. And Kimmy didn't choose to come out until she was at university. And and we talked about the fact that obviously that there were LGBT plus people in the world. And in fact, I had a cousin who was bisexual and would come with her girlfriend and stay at our house. And my children never batted an eyelid. So they'd been sort of brought up knowing a few gay people, and it wasn't a big issue. It was never something that sort of came up. My daughter didn't choose to come out until she had a girlfriend, because when we had the conversation, it was quite funny, actually. She was often on the phone and seeing this particular girl at the time. And it was one of those conversations that we had over a sort of cup of tea, sort of saying, well, you seem to be speaking to so-and-so quite a lot, and you're obviously very fond of her. And Kimmy said, well, actually, I'm gay. And I remember the sort of look in her eye and waiting for me to respond. And I just said, I'm so glad you've told me. I think it was very important for her to know, to feel that she could be trusted and that I could be trusted. I think trust plays an incredibly important part. And the fact that they have trusted you with that, such a big thing in their life, is actually really, really important. And I remember I started to, sort of a tear started coming, and it wasn't, and she said, "Mum, why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, I'll be honest with you, Kimmy. It's the fact that I'm fearful of the prejudice that you're going to face. It's not the fact that you're gay. I don't have issue with that at all. But sadly, I think that you will be on the receiving end of ignorance from others. And as a parent, it doesn't matter what your child is. You will always be, you stand there to be protective." And so I was concerned. And I said, you know, how have you sort of found telling me? And she said, "Well, I'll be honest, I knew that it would be 99.9% okay, but there was still that little 0.1% that I thought, what if, Mum?" So it takes a lot of courage, I think, for your child to come out to you. And I know that she would say, if she was here, that she's had an easy journey in terms of certainly with me, and most of her siblings have been fine about it. I mean, they were all fine at the time, but as the years have gone on, and in fact, she's now got the most lovely girlfriend. She happens to live in Iceland and has just got engaged. And the reaction of two of them have been absolutely fine, and one who lives in a country where it can be quite homophobic in their views, takes a slightly different tone, shall we say. So that saddens me, because they've all been brought up with the same values and views, but obviously there are outside influences, and I have to appreciate that.
Thanks, Jules. Earlier on, sorry, Hilary, you said about support as a parent, and you mentioned obviously FLAG, and we're here today to talk a little bit about the support for parents and families. Do you want to tell us a little bit about FLAG, about your involvement with FLAG?
My involvement in FLAG started really the day or the day after both my children came out, and I mean, wrongly, really. Although we had an inkling that my son was gay, we'd never really gone into researching what did this mean for him? What was this all about? And I was just so at a loss, really. So when I found the FLAG phone number, I phoned someone. It's probably Janet, who has sadly passed away. We both knew. And put me on to someone who lived really about a mile away from me. And I raced over there and spent ages with Murray and his wife talking about what it was to have a gay child. And that was the first step for me. It was someone who really understood what I was feeling. The worry is that because you're bewildered and worried that you're homophobic, and that I wasn't that. I just needed to know really how to find out more about what is this, how is life going to be in the next 30 years, hopefully. And so FLAG for me was a huge resource. I can remember having booklets and books and reading up, and so this is how I actually came to FLAG, and I've never left FLAG for that reason. Nowadays, Bruce might well be more informed on all this than I am. He's been more of a long-term FLAG activist. If you just go to the FLAG website, there are so many resources there. And we're broadening that range all the time. We're broadening for resources. For recently done a booklet on parents of people who are HIV positive, for example. So we really are going into the trans. There's some super booklets on what it is to have a trans child, or what it is to be trans, which again, for me, it's a different world, it's a whole different area of understanding, which is. I would like to say that my life has been so enriched by all this. I think I led such a narrow life before this, and So I'm grateful to FFLAG and also to my own children for what they've given me. FFLAG is, I got looking at some old notes I made here for other talks, and I've written here, FFLAG is about keeping families together. And the frightening thing for me is now that, I mean, I came from a religious background, not as strict as Bruce, but the very thought that I could have been imbued with these ideas that would have split up my family. And when I see them now, all coming together this weekend, and we get on so well, we've got a lovely grandchild from my daughter and her wife, I could have reacted and messed it up. And I think that I didn't in any way, and that I was able to understand and to inform myself. I will always be grateful to FFLAG and to FFLAG resources.
Because Jane, your sort of experience, you said earlier on with your son, I mean, how was it for you, or how did he actually sort of come out to you in that sense? Because you said you knew already and it wasn't really much of a thing from your end. Well,
he was just always the way he was. He didn't actually come out as in announce I'm gay. He came home for dinner one evening and said, "Oh, I've met someone." I went, "Oh, right, what's their name?" Because I couldn't say what's his name, because I couldn't let him know that I knew, but I couldn't say what's her name for him sort of to go, "Ooh." So I said, "What's their name?" And he told me, and I went, "Oh, there we go then." So when we meeting him, and that was it. That was it. End of. But what I have since discovered from agreeing to do this and having spoken to my son very recently was that he used to live somewhere else. And when we visited him, his boyfriend used to hide upstairs. And that hurt, because I thought, well, why couldn't you have just introduced this? Why did you feel the need for him to hide upstairs? And that hurts a bit. But I suppose I can understand why he did it, but he obviously wasn't ready himself to say anything to us. But part of me also wished I went more often so that he could hide upstairs a bit more, just as a joke. But you know, there was no need for that, because I would have liked to have thought that he felt comfortable within his family home, that he would have known what our reaction would have been. So why did he have to leave it for so long, and why did he have to hide him upstairs? He couldn't explain it. All he said was that it wasn't an issue. He didn't want to make it an issue, and that he had to be comfortable within himself, which I suppose is all you can ask, because once you're confident and comfortable about yourself, the rest of it, I guess, don't matter. So, you know.
I think that was one of the things from my perspective was it was that fear of the reaction you get from your parents, because as I said, my parents are in their 80s, so they're Italian, and it's a completely different mindset. I know, Bruce, you talked about the religious side of things and growing up with certain beliefs and believing something is. It's not. My dad has the same sort of belief from a Catholic background, and that's always been a struggle for me to kind of get through. How's it been since at home with the family?
Well, it's been quite a long journey because his other siblings actually sort of separated themselves and said, well, you know, this is wrong, this is evil, and all that sort of thing. So we made lots of mistakes and there are lots of tears shed. It's been a long journey, and we found that trying to get people to see things differently just doesn't work. You have to love them where they are, not assume that they are hostile to you. They're not trying to angry with you or anything. They're hurting. They're kind of like conflict in their mind is a horrible thing. And as they slowly work through that, and I think as the times have changed, his younger brother and sister, almost not a different generation, but many years younger, they found it so much easier because they had gay friends, they had trans friends. They go to university, and it's just let's have a beer. It's just so totally different. Yeah. And so it's come right but it's been a painful journey. And having, like Hilary, I would say, though, it's the most wonderful journey because we've learned so many lessons, have so many new friends now, and no longer believe that everyone has to be this little group all together. We celebrate the diversity and realise that seeing things differently is a strength. So when we first went to FFLAG, for example, we went because my wife kept wanting to say, but I want to talk to parents. I want to talk to parents. I'm a typical bloke. I didn't want to know. I thought, well, we're all right. We don't need that. We don't need these parents to talk to. We've had enough troubles. So, but anyway, we went to the FFLAG in Bristol and she loved it. But I really benefited from it. I realised it were so many things that I still had wrong, and I had wrong concepts and everything. And it was like, oh, wow, I do need other people. I do need to sort of say my thoughts and get them come back and realise, oh, yeah, actually, the situation is different from that. So FFLAG is enormously useful as a resource to learn how to not cause offence, trigger people, so many things. But also they invited us to go to Bristol FFLAG, the Bristol Pride, and I don't think we'd ever have gone to that, or certainly not within a few years. And we went along to Pride and met such wonderful young people, and youngsters used to come up and hug us and say, oh, give me a hug, my mum won't, you know. So we're in tears. And it's just a revelation, and it's wonderful.
I think that's my first interaction with FFLAG for me personally. Hilary mentioned earlier on Janet Jeffries. I used to go to school with her son, and I remember I secretly snuck out to a Pride. Pride as it was back then, Cardiff Pride, and she was there, and I was so kind of, oh my God, what am I going to do? She's going to tell everybody. She saw me, she gave me a big hug, and she said, you know, talk to people, get to know people, and she was so accepting and encouraging that it was like my first step to sort of really accepting myself and putting myself in a position to be the person I am now. So yeah, I've got a lot of love for FFLAG, and she talked a lot about the support that each member gives each other. I mean, how does FFLAG work? Do you have local groups? How do parents get in contact with you?
People find out about us mainly from the website, but there are a number of local groups, not anywhere near like as many as we would like there to be. And so you click on the website, see if there's one near you. But particularly now, ours is a Zoom meeting once a month. And so it's really nice we're having more people come because they're able to join us from different parts of the country. So anyone's welcome to join. We just... they just need to contact us and we'll give them the details.
And we used the word earlier on, diversity. I think it's fair to me to say it is a very wide panel. And I think I wonder from a FFLAG perspective and from a parent's perspective, what we can do to make sure that, you know, families from different parts of our community have the opportunity to engage and to get that support. So be it from a trans community, non-binary community, you know, how do you approach that part of the community?
This is a challenge for FFLAG, and we've been trying especially to recruit, if that's the right word, recruit parents from ethnic minorities, for example. Bruce and I were both at London Pride the last time we were able to, and we did have some success there. Obviously, it was much easier in London, and I've been trying to get through in Cardiff to Glitter Cymru and various other people, really trying to get other parents on board. So can I use this as a bit of an advertising? If anyone knows anybody who has a parent who might be able to help us, because that does seem to be important. It's slightly easier with the trans community. We have a trustee now at UK FFLAG who is trans and whose child is trans, and she's actually been an amazing resource for us in producing booklets and for actually being able to talk to parents from her point of view. I'd like to have had her here today actually, but she couldn't make it. Yeah, so we are really trying to reach out as much as we can to different parts of the community. Recruitment is a problem. We need more parents, at least particularly in Wales. This is quite an issue for us. One thing I think too, we need to remind people, especially young people, young gay people who are trans people who are listening to this, is that FLAG is really, someone did actually go for me once in a Pride, or why do parents need support? They just need to get on with it. I think the point is that FLAG and such support groups are about supporting families, keeping families together. It's not just to make parents feel comfortable and to feel happy, but it's just to make, it's a rounded approach to keeping families together and supporting each other.
Yeah, and it's that word acceptance that you said earlier on as well. I imagine, Jules, from your perspective, with regards
well, if I can just say that very, very quickly, how I arrived at getting involved with FLAG. I worked in a school, and it was very homophobic in the staff room where I worked. And I contacted Stonewall. I thought, well, if I can't stand up for LGBT equality, I can't stand up for my child. And so I contacted Stonewall. I got training, trained the staff, and as a result of that, all of a sudden, of a staff of 25, 5 members of staff came out, in inverted commas, and said, oh, I've got a gay brother. Oh, I've got a gay daughter. Oh, my daughter's had a civil partnership. Oh, my son's bisexual. Never been spoken about before. And I began to realise that actually parents needed support. So I called back my trusty friend at Stonewall and I said, now, how can I get some support for parents? And she said, FLAG. Look on the FLAG website, contact somebody from FLAG. As a result, I contacted somebody at Families Together London who are part of FLAG and joined their group and met a lot of wonderful people. And since then, because I'm still in touch with the people, as are all the other FLAG members talking today, I know that the London group have made great strides in being able to embrace quite a lot of the Black community sort of within London, particularly families where there has been sort of religious prejudice, shall we say. And I know they work very hard, but of course it's much easier somewhere like London because you have more access to a more diverse community. Yeah. Since I moved to Cheltenham and wanted to start a FLAG parents group here, I have actually had no parents as such. I respond to quite a few emails, but what I have found is that I'm also a member of the LGBT plus partnership for Gloucestershire, and I have opportunities to mix with not only sort of people that perhaps, as you've rightly pointed out, sort of with the panel is white. I went to a South Asian sort of community event in 2019 and was able to promote FLAG. And hopefully once we're sort of after this pandemic, you know, there will be opportunities like that again. The other thing that very much like Hilary is saying, that I'm fortunate enough that I've been able to meet quite a lot of trans youngsters. And so mainly in Cheltenham, what I found myself tending to do is not dealing with parents, but trying to work with trans youngsters and opening a way of communicating with their parents who are struggling. And they're struggling as well, sort of with their parents. So I think Hilary's absolutely right. FLAG isn't just for parents, it's for families. And that's how I see what I do in Cheltenham, is very much along those lines.
Thanks, Jules. I think really what I'd like to ask as well is, what advice or thought would you like to give out to someone whose child or family member has come out? I appreciate we've talked about quite a few things with regards how your actual experience is, but if you looked back on those experiences and had to give a bit of advice to someone, what would you say? Do you want to start with Bruce?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the first thing I'd say to them is, well, congratulations. Your young person has shown you a huge vote of confidence in you to come out in this way and tell you something so close to their heart, so important to them, and just rejoice in that, and then just let them know that you love them. That is the most important thing, that you love them to bits, whatever, and give them a hug if you can. And that's the key way to sort of get things going. Then a sort of an ongoing thing. I mean, we don't tell people what to do, but I can say the things that have worked for me, or the things that I've done wrong, actually, most of the time, and I've learned the lessons from, is be prepared to change your own views. Get the facts to yourself for your own self, because most of us within society live in our own subculture. Mine was the church. Others might be their ethnic group or their other religious group, and we take advice from that, and we build our worldview from that little thing. And so be open to learning from other people. Don't automatically think that you're right and they're wrong. And that's so difficult to have an open mind, particularly I think as people get older. Another thing is we've found that being honest is always the best policy. You don't always have to say everything, but if you're struggling with something, just let them know. Say, oh, I love you, but give me time to work through this. I want to look into this because I've been told so many things. And they'll then understand, because if you don't tell them, they'll sense your resistance anyway and think, oh, why are they backing off from me? Keep talking. That's another thing. Don't let things go on and the silence build, so that then it's like almost too big a thing to get the conversation going again. And another thing that I feel is important is meet their friends, know their community as well. We were very lucky in a way that we had other youngsters, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, this other son, we're talking about what he's doing and their kids and everything, and like, we're not doing the same with this son. And get to know them and be involved, and above all, believe in them. Believe that everything is going to, their heart is right, and they have something to teach and enrich your life, as you hopefully have for them. And with goodwill on both sides, we'll get through the problems and be stronger as families and as a community.
Yeah, I like that. Jane, what about you?
I just think you need to remember that it's your child, and basically you just need to let them know that you're proud of them. We're all made up of different things, and we all do different things in life, so don't concentrate on the one thing that you may feel isn't right. It might not be right for you, but it obviously is right for them, and you just need to let them know that you support them and be proud of them, and just let them be happy. And at the end of the day, that's all you want for your kids.
Yeah, simple. It's that love and happiness. Yeah. Jules, what about from yourself?
Well, I think the thing is, your child didn't choose to be LGBT+, but they did choose to be honest with you about it. And so I think it's important that you always show unconditional love and acceptance, and whatever you say in a positive response actually makes such a difference to your child. And I think it's important to tell them that you thank them for trusting you with that information. And another thing which I found, particularly now with parents who are contacting me, talking about trans youngsters coming out sort of at a much younger age than perhaps our children did. It's important to realise that they've put a lot of thought into sort of telling you about it, the fact that they're trans. And I think it's very important that you take them seriously, even though they're young, and let them know that we accept them for who they are, and get the support, get the help. There is help out there. You know, as Hilary has said, FLAG offers some fantastic support, not just in terms of the groups, but also all the booklets that we provide, and a very comprehensive website. And for me personally, I think what I found is it's not so much the lesbian and gay and bisexual community that seem to be turning to me personally as FLAG in Cheltenham for support, but it's the sort of trans youngsters. And I think, thankfully, you know, we're trying to really make progress with how we respond to the trans community via FLAG, which is great. It's absolutely fantastic. As a parent, I think it's incredibly important to educate yourself, because if you're educated and you know what's going on, and I'm educated every day, and I'm so glad I've got a gay child. I can't tell you, because it has enriched my world beyond measure, and I am so grateful. I wouldn't have made the friends that I have had I not got a gay child. So thank you.
Oh, it's beautiful. Final word with you, Hilary, really. Do you want from your perspective?
I so much agree with what Jules just said, that thank you to my gay children. Can you imagine what a wonderful time my husband and I have had in New York with our gay son? His friends are fabulous. We've had great nights out. We've just lived. I can only say that. On a serious note, I think informing yourself is so important. If I could go back and say my big regret is that when I sort of felt my son was gay, I kind of knew really deep down that I didn't talk to my husband even more, and my sister and my parents who were then alive. Why didn't we communicate more and talk about this? So I think communication within families and informing yourself within the family is so important. It's worked out well for us, but things could have hopefully not, but they possibly could have gone on a different route. And also that young people should also remember that parents have to come out too. I mean, it is a coming out, always. It's still a coming out. For me, when people say, but my grandson, obviously they're dying to find out, well, how did they make him? Where did they go? What clinic did they use? You know, there's always people are always still asking questions. And I think parents are also coming out as their lives, as they get older. But it is all about unconditional love for each other. And I think this is where we all stand, and we're all in agreement.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that, I mean, you mentioned it on a bit of a sales pitch as well, then, if you want to call it. Yeah. I know, obviously, in Cardiff and in Wales, you're still looking for to offer that support to more parents. So I'll leave that word to you.
Yes, we are. Please, if you are able to help, or if you have a parent who you think might be suitable, who would love to help us, please contact FLAG. If you just look on FLAG website, you will find a link to FLAG South Wales, and we would really welcome you. We're also meeting on Zoom. There are a few of us. We have one parent who is trans, and so we're quite a mixed group, although we're not ethnically mixed as we would like to be, and we are a bit old. But please, if you do know anyone who might be able to help us, please get in touch.
Thank you, Hilary.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just I think the general kind of feeling seems to be that if there is anyone out there watching this, and if you're feeling worried or feeling alone, speak to someone who can help you, because there are people who have been through what you're going through before. Other parents of other LGBT children or adults, as they may be at the time, who can give you the benefit of their advice and talk about their experiences, so that you can get through. And like the panel said today, family at its heart, it's that honesty, and that helps with strengthening that love. I just want to thank everybody for taking time out today to be on the panel. Thank you to everyone watching, and yeah, take care.